I'm Brian Briscoe, host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. And this podcast is different than everything else out there. I bring together a new and an experienced investor on each episode, and I let the aspiring investor ask the questions that they need answered. So if you're an aspiring investor yourself, you probably will have the exact same questions. Now, before we get to this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button below and that little bell to make sure you get notified every time we post a new episode. And now, enjoy the show. We got Vish on the line. What do you want to ask him today?
How do you build that relationship with property management where they're able to really verify your pro forma before even submitting LOI?
So Jaynish, to answer your question, the property manager is not obligated to give you any information unless you have a very good relationship with them.
Okay.
Because what you need to do is you need to work with your broker, have a good relationship with the broker. Okay. And you got to tell him what is holding you back and what is concerning you. Okay.
Got it.
Because it is in the broker's interest for him to close the deal. That is his first thing.
Right.
And the next motivation for him is he wants to see, are you in a situation to close the deal or you're just wasting his time? So you need, from the day one, you need to give him that confidence. It is not just me. My team has closed probably 200 deals, or probably our team's assets under management is over 400 million. So once he knows that, he knows it is not just you. You have a solid team which is going to close the deal.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe, and I'm very excited for today's show. It's one of our Ask the Expert episodes, and we've got two great people on the line with us today. We got Vish Muni and Jaynish Patel. Vish, you're our experienced investor today, so you're up first. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, great having you, and it's been great getting to know you over the last couple of weeks. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about your story.
All right, thank you, Brian. Yeah, so I've been an IT guy for about 15 years, and that is how I started. And back up a little bit, I came to United States in year 2000, and like anyone else, I also joined the bandwagon and came here to take over the fear of Y2K. Everyone had a fear, the worldwide fear, and I was in technology for 15 years before I transitioned to real estate. And what excited and forced me to transition to real estate is, while I was in technology, I always had a passion for real estate, and I always used to visit open houses on the weekends. And I didn't know what to do with these open houses, but I just followed a lot of people, just walk in, walk out, not knowing what I was getting out of it. And until I got married in 2005, and to my wife who's from Texas. And when we moved to Texas, we were renting an apartment. And before we rented an apartment, we used to go look at houses for rent. And we came across this thing called a duplex. That concept was new to me. And we thought, wow, this is fantastic. You rent one side of the house. It looks like you're living in a house. There's nobody stacked up above you or next to you or behind you. And it gives you the feeling that you're living in a house. And it's a duplex. So my wife and me decided, well, this is a great investment. It's going to be, if you live on one side and the other side, you rent it out. And that is how it all started in 2009. So we decided to form an LLC called Duplexaholics, and with the objective of buying one duplex a year for 10 years. And it sounds pretty simple and straightforward. One duplex a year for 10 years, no big deal. And we did year one duplex, year two duplex, year three, two duplex, three duplex, the third one. And then sort of everything got diluted. So we went and bought a fourplex. And then we bought a few single family homes. And then the financial institutions came back and told, time out, because you've been buying too many properties. I'm sorry, we can't give you any more money. And all the creative financing options also ran out. And fast forward after 10 years, in 2018, I looked at when I was filing taxes, are we really making money? We've been
Mhm.
investing in all these properties. But little did I realize I've been working hard. I thought I could probably retire with all that.
Mhm.
And live the lifestyle what you see on the internet. Everybody talks about the lifestyle, flying the jets and whatnot, and the works. And I was nowhere close to that. And that's when I had to uh, do an assessment of what I was doing right or wrong.
Mhm.
And that is what perked my curiosity. Then I decided, well, what I was doing, nothing wrong with investing in single family homes, but there is no benefits in terms of taxes, in terms of economies of scale, and in
Mhm.
terms of using other people's money, other people's platforms. There's nothing. It was just me.
Yeah.
Whatever I did was right. I'm not answerable to anybody. And it was just a solopreneur, not an entrepreneur. I mean, it was an entrepreneur, but it was more like a solopreneur.
Yeah.
I just need to do it by myself. I mean, I'm not utilizing other people's skills, other people's experience, money, nothing.
Mhm.
So that is when I started networking and reading a lot of books and educating myself. So lesson number one, what I learned is I had to stop everything what I was doing
Mhm.
and switch to something called multifamily.
Yeah.
And that is how it all started. That was in 2019. I started networking with in Austin. And I did meet a lot of fantastic people with whom I still stay in touch with. They sort of become more like my mentors.
Yep.
And I read a lot of books, and I came across this one book which was written by our ex-president Donald Trump and
Mm.
Dave Lindahl. And that is how I read that book, and I read more books. I read more books,
Mhm.
and that was an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
And that is when I decided I should be investing in apartment complexes.
Yeah.
Because
Which Trump? I just recently read a book by Donald Trump. Which one did you read?
I have multiple books. I read this Commercial Investing 101 with Dave
Okay.
Lindahl.
All right. Yeah, that's not the one I read. I read one that he published, it was probably good 20, 25 years ago, but
right.
very, very insightful. I mean, love him or hate him as a president. I mean, he's done a lot of great things, in real estate and made a lot of money. So
Yeah.
a lot of lessons learned, but so something that interesting. You started in 2009. A duplex a year. In 2007, I made the goal of a single family a year for the next 10 years, and it was on the third one where the banks told me that I couldn't take any more loans out. I mean, that was 2009 after the market crashed. But year one, year two, great. Year three, banks were like, nope.
Right.
But very, very similar. I wish I had discovered duplexes, early on, because I think the lending would have been a little more favorable towards me.
Right.
But so 2019, you transitioned to multifamily, start going to meetups. How did you get into, actually, investing in multifamily actively on the GP side?
Well, I joined RE Mentor. I joined the mastermind group. So when I did the transition, there are a couple of things which I'd learned from investing in single family homes. And I decided not to repeat the same mistake. That is number one. While I was investing in single family homes, I didn't belong to any mastermind group. Networking was not required. So whatever research I did, whatever I invested was the best. And I did not have any mentor. And I didn't read too many books. So going forward, I decided I'm not going to do any of these things. First thing I joined is the mastermind groups. And the next is I got a mentor. And I started associating myself with people who are already investing in multifamily, which I did not do when I was doing single family. And I joined Dave Lindahl's group, and I got a mentor out there.
Yep.
And I did everything and what they told me. But prior to that, I had invested in 3 different syndications as an LP while I was networking, even before I joined any of these groups, because I got so excited about this multifamily. I thought, wow, 50 units, 100 units for 50K, you can go in as an LP. And I thought, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let me jump into this. Yeah. So that is how I I started as an LP with 3 deals even before I joined any mastermind group. And once I joined this mastermind group, whatever I learned there was some of it was new and some of it was I was doing all the time, because the one thing they told me is to network all the time, which was nothing new, because I love networking. I like meeting new people. I like to add value to every network, because it's networking for the sake of networking. It doesn't excite me.
No. Yeah. And I mean, networking for the sake of networking. One thing that has made me scratch my head a lot is when people share on, social media, a picture of a Zoom screen with 80 people on there and say, your net worth is your net worth, or your network is your net worth. It doesn't work that way, but I agree that statement's true. Your network is your net worth, or vice versa. But it takes a little more than just going to networking events to make that work.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity, because
Absolutely.
I know so many people who you wouldn't find them on any social media, but they're the best mentors you can have, because they have a network of 5 people or 10 people, and that's all you need. You don't need to have 5,000 people in your contacts, because you don't have any quality or time with every 5,000 people.
Yeah. Right. I had somebody ask me this once about a year ago. She said, I see a lot of newer syndicators post on social media. I never see the people who've been syndicating for 5 to 10 years posting on social media, and I thought about it for a little bit, and the answer came clear as day. It was, well, the people who've been doing this for 5 or 10 years have already established relationships with enough investors that they don't have to go out and reach it out. I mean, it ends up being, a relationship thing, but I think a lot of people up front, and I advocate this, it's what I did. A lot of people up front start, social media campaigns to find and create these relationships, but it's really, the deeper down relationships that you're striving to build. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the subject.
Well, you're right, Brian, because you don't find those experienced syndicators making so much noise on any platforms, for that matter. Because if you don't belong to their inner circle, you might be a neighbor, you still wouldn't know he's doing all that business, because they maintain a very low profile. So they're extremely focused, and they have so much clarity. I wish I had that clarity even 5 years back. So they're so focused, because that's one of the things what got me started is I stopped doing everything. I was doing so many things before I got into multifamily. I thought being so busy is the best thing, is a cool thing to do. But then I realized you're chasing so many rabbits. He's not going to catch you in one.
Yeah. I love that. There's I'm sure this is a well-known statement, but I first heard it from the guy who set the world record for a marathon. People asked him about, his success, and he's like, the only thing I care about is the marathon, and what he said, in Africa, if you chase 2 rabbits, you go hungry,
There you go. Yeah.
And it's just like you chase 1 rabbit and you're going to have food, and that was his statement. And it's one of those that just had a very profound, impact on me, that I thought, I need to, I need to boil things down to just one big goal that I'm pursuing at once. I can be working on a lot of different areas, but one big rabbit that I'm chasing. So I like it. But
that's good. And then what I realized is it's along the coast, there are a couple of things which holds good no matter what I do, and it adds more value in multifamily to have more clarity, because there are so many moving parts. I can't say that I'm going to syndicate the deal all by myself. I don't need anybody. No. Even if I know everything to do, but it's impossible to do all by myself.
Yeah.
And I still need to delegate it to somebody else, because I'll not be able to do everything. So I primarily, all my business and all whatever has happened in my life all till date has been through relationships. So I pay extreme importance to what kind of relationships and where I spend my most time with.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, relationships are absolutely key. So, well, let's talk about one of the deals that you've been involved in. Can you tell us a little bit about, one of the properties, and we'll go from there.
Well, my first deal was, so far I've invested in 8 different syndications, 4 as an LP and 4 as a GP.
Mm-hmm.
And all my GP deals I did in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And 2021 was an extremely busy year for me. I did not get on any podcast because I was super focused.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how I was able to get all these 4 deals. And how did I get onto these 4 deals is the next most interesting and exciting part, which I love to share. Now, if you go to a restaurant to eat,
Mm-hmm.
just because you show up there and just because you're willing to pay, nobody knows what you want to eat unless you tell them. You got to be very clear. So I figured out when I network, when I meet with people, you're given 5 minutes time or 3 minutes time to tell people what are you looking for.
Yeah.
So if you don't tell them, it's another business card. They'll take your card and just going to throw it away because they don't know what you want exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that is number one, because I was able to communicate with all the people whom I met. What is it I'm looking for in a deal? And when the timing was right, when they found the deal, they contacted me telling, listen, we have a deal. Would you like to raise capital for this? So how did they know I would like to raise capital? Because I told them, this is my limitations. I've never done a deal, but I've been a GP on 4 different deals, but I can bring in my net worth. I can add some experience, real estate experience, and I love selling. I mean, I wouldn't say selling, I would say is educating people.
Yeah.
And you educate people enough and you show them the benefits and inspire them to take action. And anybody would buy anything, anybody would pay for anything. Yeah. Because it's not selling anymore. You're just educating people. You're just showing them the benefits. And that is how people, when they found the right deal, they approached me, they asked me, would you be interested in raising capital for this deal? These are the terms. And being transparent and being upfront with them, so set your expectations right. Yeah. And that is how I was able to get on my first deal, which was a 232 unit deal in Houston. Wow. We were supposed to have closed in 2020 October, November. But because of Thanksgiving and Christmas, it got pushed to Jan. Yep. And then Jan was the first month, so it got pushed to Feb, and Feb snowstorm happened in Houston. And whatever the projections we had made during the investor webinar, and nothing held up because the snowstorm changed everything, because 2 buildings collapsed. There's a water break, and insurance claim kicked in, and the closing got pushed up. So we finally closed in April of 2021.
Wow. It's like a marathon right there.
Right. Never ending. So that was the first deal. There was a lot of experience. There's a lot of learning which happened. That was an off-market deal. We got it between 80 and 90K a door. And you don't get that anymore.
In Houston, you don't get that anymore.
You don't get that anymore. And that property is performing really well now. Right now, but we were off to a rough start and a bad start, but it was all worth it. It was a lot of learning experience.
Yeah,
I had great sponsors on that, great mentors, and I still communicate and talk to them every now and then.
Nice. Yeah, I think you gave a priceless tip there. When you're networking, when you're meeting people, tell them what you're interested in. Right. I think that's absolutely crucial. I love the analogy, the restaurant analogy. They don't know what you want to eat until you tell them. It's the same thing when you're at networking events. And I mean, I just realized I spent last weekend, at the Best Ever conference in Denver, and I'm wondering how many people don't know what I wanted, don't know what I was interested in and what I was looking for, because I didn't tell them. I try to go in laser focused, but I think a lot of times, I think that's priceless. So, well, that's something I'd like to ask everybody is about their why or their motivation. So I know you touched a little bit on it earlier on, but what is your big burning why?
My big burning why is, number one, is my family. I just I have a 13-year-old daughter
Mhm.
and a wife. I have a very extremely supportive wife who's was a full-time doctor at the VA,
Mhm.
and she was born and raised in Texas, and she's more Texan than me. And so what is the big deal about my family? It's basically all my family is in India. The only family I have out here is my wife and my daughter. So that's the only family I have, and there are some things which you can't replace, or you can't buy or you can't borrow. So when I have this family, that is my why, day in and out every day. And the rest of the family is there in India, but I can't get to see them. I can't get to spend time with them.
Mhm.
Even though you could do everything virtually, but there's these things that you'll have to be physically present.
Yeah.
And that is my why. And then at the same time, and that was one of the reasons why I had to switch to full-time being a multifamily investor. So whatever little time I have to spend with my daughter, I could be there for her if she
Yeah.
needs me.
Yeah, it makes a lot of difference. I mean, I started out, investing in multifamily with a full-time W-2. Sometimes it was a more than full-time W-2, it felt like, but it's nice to have the flexibility. It's nice to be able to, my kids are out of school on Friday, and of course I have a networking event that I run every Friday, but as soon as that's over, I mean, we're headed to the hills. So
Right.
it's nice to be able to have that flexibility. So well, that said, Vish, what's next for you?
Well, I want to educate people on what I do. I'm always there when I network. I ask people, how can I help you? How can I add value? Because people ask, so how can you add value? So I tell people, listen, I spent 10 years doing single family. My background is IT, and I'm a Texas realtor, and I have 8 different syndications experience.
Yep.
So I can share that experience with you. I mean, I'm not losing anything by sharing my experience. I'm just inspiring people, educating people, and so that way they can decide what is right, what is wrong for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't need to spend another 10 years learning that at 10 years of time and money is lost. That is extremely important.
Yeah.
So I want to be a good educator, and I want to give my education for free, because if people say, well, that is your 10-year effort, why are you giving it away for free? So no, because that might make a big difference for a lot of people, because when they learn this is what it is, because people don't add value when it is for free, but it is up to them how they look at it.
Yeah.
It's my responsibility to educate people and add value to every person I meet.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very much a give back mentality. I love it. Yeah, I've learned a lot that what you give, comes back, 5, 7, 10-fold. It's, call it whatever you want. I think a lot of different religions have, different ways of explaining it, but I think it's a universal law. You give, the more you give, the more you're going to end up receiving. So,
right.
Well, that said, let's shift gears here and bring Jaynish on, or put him in the hot seat. He's been on for the whole call, but
right.
There we go. Shifting hot seats today. Jaynish, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys letting me come by.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm 21 years old right now. I got excited and introduced into multifamily when I was a senior in high school. So I was 18 at the time. And so at that point in my life, I was deciding where I was going to go to school. And I really had two choices, and I was either going to go in the medical route or I was going to go into finance. Um, the reason why I wanted to go to the medical route was because I saw myself building wealth for my family. And
Yeah.
there was a school there was a hospital, Lutheran General Hospital, right next to my high school, and it was the top 3 trauma center. So
Yeah.
I was able to shadow, there was a class I took senior year called healthcare careers, and I was able to shadow the professionals that I was going to manifest to become. And right then and there, I knew this was not for me. I was going
Yeah.
into it with the wrong intentions, and I knew that. And I thought, I did have some interest to it. I watched Grey's Anatomy. I did like it, but yeah, but I didn't feel like this is where I belonged, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't, because all throughout my high school career, I was in business classes, and
Hmm.
during entrepreneurship, I was just an outspoken, and I was known in the business community at school.
Hmm.
I was always selling stuff. I was just always making money. Um, so senior year, I decided, okay, I'm going to pursue finance. And then the reason for that is because I came across Grant Cardone, as you
Hmm.
mentioned, the flying jets and things.
Yeah.
Right, right. So 18 years old, I'm still in a bubble. That's what I like to call it, where
Hmm.
you believe you can do anything, but you haven't hit reality, and as soon as you step into the real world, that freshman year is when reality hits, and you're like, okay, whatever my goals are, it's time to actually pursue them. And like you mentioned, the focus, right? So
Hmm.
most of my friends that are in school are using that as an excuse, I would say. Like, I'm
Yeah.
in school, so I don't have to do these things. Like, that's my priority. When in
Hmm.
reality, the system of school is not really focusing on any niche or anything that you're doing specifically, unless you're an engineer, doctor, things of that
Yeah.
nature. So right now, even to this day, school has really been holding me back. But um, I was very naive at the time, and I was like, I understood the concept.
Hmm.
Educating, like you said, is the biggest thing, and I was able to, from the first level of shelling, just, Grant Cardone never mentions the word syndication in any of his podcasts.
Yeah.
So I just had this notion of, I'm going to buy this apartment building. This is what it can do. And I'm a very rational person. So I was like, if I was raising equity, I have to make sure that the market and then the stability was always going to be there. And what I
Yeah.
really liked about multifamily, even before I knew anything, was that there's underwriting.
Yeah.
The bank underwrites it, there's property management, and the sponsor's going to underwrite it. So that gave me so much confidence. And if I can find the right property, and if it checks all those boxes, I was going to be successful.
Yeah.
Um, so freshman year of college, I'm kind of nibbling in, and I'm still listening to Grant Cardone. And most of my education is through his book and just through his podcast. And then I really realized, we're like, okay, so I was getting to the point where I wasn't learning much new stuff from the podcast I was listening to. So
Hmm.
then I discovered Michael Blanc. And then Michael Blanc was the first person that started using higher vocab, started using specific details.
Hmm.
He mentioned prepayment penalties and things like that. And these are things that I'm clueless about. I have no idea about all these things: SEC attorneys, PPM, Reg A, Reg D, all that stuff. And I was just very overwhelmed. And that point, I remember I was at work, I was listening to the podcast. I made a decision. I thought to myself, this is reality. I'm not in a
Hmm.
bubble anymore where I'm going to have to, like, oh, I'll just do this, do this. It's like, if I'm going to do this, I have to start now. So that day, I remember the day vividly. I made the decision, like, okay, I'm going to figure out everything about this multifamily syndication. So I looked
Hmm.
at everything of the process as an opportunity for me to grow. I would watch multiple podcasts, like, just what due diligence is. I'd find every single podcast on YouTube and soak up all the game. And every
Yeah.
video would teach me something different. So I was just educating myself from the freshman year of high school, I mean, of college, to sophomore year. So about 2 years of education. Read Joe Fairless's book, read Michael Blanc's book, just really understanding. And podcast really helps substantially, because it
Hmm.
allows you to understand how people talk. You know,
Yeah.
um, and that's what's really benefited me in my networking and just being able to be taken seriously.
Hmm.
So fast forward, COVID hit, which really accelerated my real estate syndication
Yeah.
journey. That's when I was like, okay, I have all this extra time. I'm not commuting. I go to DePaul right now. I'm not commuting. I'm not wasting
Yep.
time. I'm able to really lock in with real estate. And I knew a lot. I was at the point where every podcast I would watch, I wouldn't learn anything new. It would just be a very small detail that I would pick up on. And it did help. So I was like, okay, now I have to start accelerating this beast and move forward and start raising capital, things of that nature.
Hmm.
So I put together a little presentation, and it was more so just education. I believe it's really about who knows you, because
Yeah.
let's say
Right.
you're the CEO of a company, and and someone I know is going to be in IT, and he's kind of half, and I don't really feel confident in his abilities. And there's another person, and you're willing to vouch for him. Both those people, but it's about who knows you, like, who looks
Hmm.
at you when it comes to real estate. So my whole goal was, I want everyone to associate real estate and syndication with me. So every single investor I presented to, first it was just friends and family, and they were able to see, like, how much conviction I speak, how much confidence I have, and I made sure before I was presenting to investors, that I would have any possible question that an
Hmm.
investor would ask ready to go. Like, I couldn't stutter. I wanted to make sure that I really knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I raised some money, and then I came across a problem. I didn't have a sponsor. I didn't have experience. I didn't know all the other things that I needed, right? I didn't have those boxes checked. So I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. I came across an investor that invested in a couple syndications.
Mhm.
So he was like just looking at me in hindsight, kind of just like, this kid is young, he's gonna do it. It's just a matter of he needs a lot of things to really push this engine through. So
Mhm.
he connected me over three syndicators in this area. I'm in Chicago, so around
Yep.
this area, two were out of state, and then one was in Chicago. So I was able to connect with him. He put me in connection with the CEO of the company, and I had an internship that summer. So I
Oh,
was able
nice.
to see, yeah, it was great. It helped me so much because I was able to see how property management works, how leasing works, how the overview of like the underwriting and how to check in with these systems, investor calls, property management calls. His property management team was vertically integrated. So I was able to just see how the whole company ran. And that really helped me because I was able to see as an investor, I would see things like this. I would listen to a podcast and be like, and I would hear something like, "Oh, you find a property that's doing 70% expenses, property manager will bring that down to the
Yeah.
reasonable amount." And I never understood, what does that mean? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And then I was able to see like, oh, they're gonna go check in, make sure there's no water leaking in the common area, like just upkeep of the property. And with property management, it converts straight to leasing. I was able to see, oh, how are they getting leads through Show Mojo? I knew the Appfolio. I knew how everything worked, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that happened because I was able to really see how everything works top to bottom and have more confidence going in
Yeah.
investing and raising capital. So yeah, so I basically came across a point where I had experience and I was able
Mhm.
to leverage that mentor, and I was
Mhm.
able to raise equity. The only thing I lacked was a sponsor. So
Mhm.
I went ahead, I started networking more and more, and I found a sponsor off of Dan Hartford's podcast,
Mhm.
Multifamily Investor Nation.
Yep.
And they're actually in Evanston, not too far away. Two brothers. One of them is younger. His name is Eric, and
Mhm.
he's been phenomenal. He's been a huge mentor of mine, helping me throughout this whole process, and he's sponsoring the loan for a deal that I have. So long
Nice.
story short, yeah. So long story short, right now I'm looking for my first deal. We recently found a deal that we really liked in DeKalb, um,
Mhm.
and we needed to raise money for the deal. Right now, I'm short on equity, so we didn't pursue it. But I'm just actively searching for deals, and that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Yeah, you've done a whole lot for somebody your age, and like I said before we started recording, I wish I was in your position. I wish I was
Right, right,
that smart when I was your age. But and for people
right. No, I
listening,
don't.
he's 21, so absolutely amazing. But that said, Janish, we got Vish on the line. What do you want to ask him today?
Yeah, so these might be very niched questions, but the thing that I come across most often when I'm looking at deals, when I'm analyzing deals, I come across two issues. Um, One thing is that when I'm looking at deals, I'm looking at T12s, I'm looking at the rent roll. What I notice usually is that I come across issues where properties are in the 30 to 40% range in expenses, and some that are way above in the 60 to
Mhm.
70% range. And in my underwriting, I know it's different per market, but I'll ask the broker, they'll tell me one thing. I don't really trust the broker, and because he wants to sell the property. I'll talk to property management, and they just need to see the property, understand it more. So just when you're underwriting in hindsight, what
Mhm.
what's a conservative tool that you use that in both cases where you're able to feel confident in your underwriting and feel confident moving forward with the deal?
Well, most of the time, Jaynish, but since you have a lot of experience for being a 21
I don't
Mhm.
think
kid, and
so.
at least you have a lot of clarity in what you're doing, and you're educating
Right.
yourself. That's a great thing. But what I do is, whatever uh, the financials, what you get from the broker, I would say trust but verify in
Right.
90% of the case, because most of the financials what you get are sent to you for a reason, and some of them are partly true, some of them
Mhm.
are just there, just getting ready to be for the property to be sold.
Mm,
But I'm in the similar situation like you, because we don't know how much of it is right. But
right.
when you're underwriting, you just I also use Michael Blank's and
I use that too. Yeah.
Dave Lindel's template. So the rule of thumb, you just take that one. That is one thing I
Mhm.
do. Use the rule of thumb, and then every tenant is different. You would see unit A and B side by side. Unit B could be the tenant might be a little bit may not be too worried about how to take care of things, might be running it down. So unit A might be the best tenant. You may not have any issues with the property. So that way, it all depends up to tenant, and why one unit is more, its maintenance is high, another one is less.
I see.
So what I do is, most of the time when I underwrite a deal, I try to visit the property myself, or if I identify someone who's boots on the ground, just tell them to make a trip. Because once they do that, you will find so much of variation in the numbers, what you're looking and what they find by visiting the property.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think what lenders use when they're underwriting is they'll use a T3 for income, because that's a more accurate snapshot of what future income is going to be. But they'll go back 1 to 2 years on expenses. And Vish made a key point. If a group knows that they're going to sell a property, a lot of times they're only providing T12s to the potential buyers. They will try to run it lean during that last year, so they'll do a lot of put a lot of capital expense, capital dollars into it. And, if they have like a 2-year renovation period and they want to sell at the end of year 3, they'll try to make that 3rd year really, really lean. And so sometimes when you see these properties that have a 30% expense ratio, they're probably running it super lean so they can sell it at the end of the year. So always take that with a grain of salt. And, if you can get 2 years worth of financials, get 2 years worth of financials. It's a seller's market right now, so you're not likely to get 2 years of financials for underwriting before a contract, but make sure you're getting, 2 to 3 years worth of financials if you get the contract and you're going into due diligence, so you can verify. And then, property management, they're absolutely key at helping with that one. And do what you can do to get them out to the property. If I'm starting a new relationship with a property manager, I'll always offer to pay. I'll pay you hourly. Just tell me what your hourly rate is, and can you go out to the property and can you take care of it for me?
That's another thing that I was going to mention, is that, so clearly, property management is going to really help define how true your pro forma and your business plan is. The thing that I was wondering is, so every single time that I go on tour with the property management company, I noticed that, I've only done it once because they were vertically integrated. But what I noticed is, whenever a lot of times I reach out, like for example, for this DeKalb deal, I'll reach out to somebody and, I'll reach out to the property manager, like, hey, can we get a pro forma for this? And they're really unable to create a pro forma unless they're able to tour the property. So what I'll do is I'll just have them confirm the rents that I want, or the expense given what they know in the market. That's one thing that I wanted to clarify, was how do you know that? How do you build that relationship with property management where they're able to really verify your pro forma before even submitting LOI? That's kind of like the process of when you tour a property with property management. That's also something I wanted to know. Is it post LOI? Is it pre LOI? Just kind of things of that nature in terms of acquisition.
So Jaynish, to answer your question, the property manager is not obligated to give you any information unless you have a very good relationship with them.
Okay.
Because what you need to do is, you need to work with your broker, have a good relationship with the broker. Okay. And you got to tell him what is holding you back and what is concerning you. Okay.
Got it.
Because it is in the broker's interest for him to close the deal. That is his first thing.
Right.
And the next motivation for him is, he wants to see, are you in a situation to close the deal, or you're just wasting his time? Because if he feels that you're wasting his time, you may not even answer your phone calls. You may not even reply to your emails. So you need, from the day one, you need to give him that confidence. It is not just me. My team has closed probably 200 deals, or probably our team's assets under management is over 400 million. So once he knows that, he knows it is not just you. You have a solid team which is going to close the deal. And you need to figure out what is his motivation to work with you. And once he knows that, he's going to get you whatever numbers you want, because he's working with the property manager and the seller. So for the seller to sell the deal, he has to give what the broker wants it. So he'll be able to get you those numbers. But the property managers directly, they don't know who you are, and they really don't know why they should give you also.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So one thing that I would say for this current deal that we're looking at, the property was owner managed, right? So they
Okay.
didn't have
Mhm.
up-to-date financials. They didn't She never even kept a T12, right?
Right.
So when I would ask the broker for the T12 or taxes and things like that, he would provide me with updated taxes. But with PM, it's that's kind of where I get tricked because it's sure he wants, like, what if I want him to confirm rent numbers? He might confirm them for the for the his incentive of wanting to close the deal, you know?
Mhm.
So like for things like taxes and the T12, like just getting stuff, that that's all good, but when I need to really confirm stuff, I feel like there's bias there because he wants it for both sides. It doesn't matter to him if I close the deal or not, if I achieve the rents or not, you know?
Yeah.
Well, what you
And
need to do is you need to do the rent audit as part of your due diligence
Mhm.
okay.
and verify all the deposits. And
Yeah.
that is the only way you'll have to do it. You can probably in
Yeah.
the LOI itself, you can put a condition stating that this information is missing. But on the PSA, you're going to verify these
Yeah.
Okay.
details. Right.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
And I mean, I think you're looking at the smaller properties, the type of properties that, Vish probably owned on his build up. But if you're looking at the smaller properties, you're going to have some owners that are not very sophisticated.
Right.
And unfortunately on those, you're not going to get a clear picture of what's happened over the last year or two. Okay. So
Right.
that's where it's really important that you understand, what the average expenses are in a market and what the rents are in a market, so you can fill in the blanks. And that really, to get there, you just have to underwrite a whole bunch of properties. You have to talk with a lot of
Mhm.
people. And property managers in a lot of ways are like brokers. They're not going to give you a lot of their time unless they know it's going to give them a paycheck. And
Right.
that's one of the toughest nuts to crack up front, is getting property managers to help you out. Now, I've got the advantage of having 650 units, that I'm a GP on. And so when I call a property manager, they're more likely to give me the time that I want if it's a new property manager in a new market.
Right.
But when I was brand new, like I said, I would offer to pay, property managers, and I still had a hard time getting property management companies to do, a pro forma for me. But
Right.
the more experience you have, and I love what Vish said. You go through the broker, and the broker can you leverage their relationships. That's something that I didn't think about when I was, coming through the trenches. But
Right.
I think what I've realized is that there are two people who are critical to the syndication.
mhm,
Uh, I mean, it's all a relationship based, but in terms of priorities and in terms of who are the key people, uh, property managers are the key people. I mean, they're the ones who know what is happening at the ground level, at the ground zero,
Mhm.
because they will tell you whether this property is maintained well or cash flowing or non-cash flowing, uh, what do they have in the closets and everything.
mhm,
So property managers. And the next is get to know the brokers, broker relations.
yeah,
And the three is the lender. So you have a strong relationships with these three people, and you will be shocked to see how many deals they can bring you off market.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed with this deal. So for this deal, there was the same broker that brought it to us. Previously, we found a deal and they were asking way too much, even with seller financing. Like it just didn't make sense. It didn't meet debt coverage, and they were looking for a little too much. So we redirected and we found this deal, and everything was looking really good. It's just there wasn't equity, and also with PM, that was an issue because one of the property managers told me in that area, like, hey, we would pass on this because of how it was, how it was maintained. Like they base it
mhm,
off the Google reviews, and that was alarming to me. So we decided to take a step back, especially given the fact that property management didn't want to manage the property.
yeah. Yeah, that might be a red flag if a property manager doesn't want to manage it. But
Right.
we are about out of time now, so I'd love to continue the conversation, but we need to wrap things up. So one question for each of you to do that, wrap it up. Vish, you get to go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Well, they can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
That is the easiest way. So that way, most of my information out there is updated, and they could look up for a Vish, a Vish, and my last
Mhm.
name is Muni, Muni. or else my phone number, they can call me or text me, which is 254 444 7300.
All right. And we'll have that in the show notes for a link to your LinkedIn page and the phone number in the show notes. If anybody is listening to this, wants to connect with Vish, definitely do it. And Jaynish, same question for you. How can listeners learn more about you?
Same here. You can look me up on my LinkedIn. My name, Jaynish, last name Patel. Or you could reach out to me via text or phone call. That's probably the best way to reach me at 773-936-1913.
All right. Sounds great. And once again, same thing, interested in what, in connecting with Jaynish, hit the show notes and connect with them. That said, thank you to both of you for coming on the show today. Very much appreciate your time. And it was a lot of fun talking with you today.
Oh, thank you,
I
Brian.
appreciate you having us.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans, yet, you are missing out. So get yourself 30 days free by clicking the link below in the description, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.